Yes!
Whether you're a new or returning player to Destiny 2, it's incredibly unlikely that you haven't heard of the hand cannon known as the Luna's Howl. You've either been killed by it in PvP, or your friends have told you stories about how overpowered it was in the past, and how it's a shadow of its former self. Now, for the most part, that much is true, but Luna's Howl is definitely a viable weapon in its present day state. Unfortunately, the only way you can obtain this weapon is by playing in a 3v3 survival playlist and completing a very extensive quest. The length of this quest, alongside the fact that you can't obtain this weapon without playing in the survival playlist, is enough to deter new and or returning players from going for this weapon, but I have a few tips that'll make obtaining Luna's Howl a bit easier. In this video, I won't discuss the entire quest with comprehensive detail, but I will throw some tips at you that'll make the more annoying steps of this quest a bit easier. So without further ado, let's get it in. After completing 10 matches in the survival playlist, win or lose, you have to complete the step known as Painted Guilt, which instructs you to land 150 hand cannon final blows, followed by Anger and Bargaining, which is 200 solar damage kills. After that is 3 rumble matches to complete Depression and Loneliness, and finally 100 hand cannon precision final blows, aka headshots. Now, if you haven't realized this before, hand cannons are the most popular weapons in Destiny 2, and will probably always be the most viable weapons in the Crucible. The 150 hand cannon final blows for Painted Guilt aren't something you'll have to go out of your way for if you are an avid hand cannon user, but if you are not a hand cannon user, I'll go ahead and tell you that the 180 RPM hand cannons have the best ease of use factor of all hand cannon archetypes. 180s are like hand cannons on training wheels due to their precision frame intrinsic perk, which gives these hand cannons a straight up and down kick, as opposed to the other hand cannon archetypes, which all kick backwards. 180 RPM hand cannons feel as if sidearms and scout rifles did the fusion dance. I mean, that's the best way I can explain them. Anyways, when it comes to 180 RPM hand cannons capable of random rolls, your options are pretty limited, as Service Revolver, Trust, and Optative are the only ones in the game as of presently. Optative was introduced alongside Vex Offensive, but will apparently be unavailable after Season of the Undying has concluded, so try and grind out a good roll on one of these before the end of the season. Service Revolver is the only 180 RPM hand cannon in the game capable of random rolls, and I'm still unsure if this weapon is in the loot pool of weapons that can drop from an engram from Commander Zavala if you didn't obtain it in Season of the Drifter. However, it is possible to drop this weapon from clan engrams and as an end of strike reward, despite if you obtained it in Season of the Drifter or not. So out of the 3, Trust is definitely going to be your best bet. Trust is in many loot pools consisting of Gambit, 801's blue weapon frames, and Menagerie, but out of all these, Menagerie would be your best friend. The fact that Menagerie enables you to pick the masterwork of your weapons will make the process of getting a nicely rolled Trust a whole lot easier. Honestly, you could use Trust for the remainder of the Luna's Howl quest, as Trust is a solar damage weapon, and solar damage kills are required for the 3rd step of the Luna's Howl quest. Oh, and I can't forget about the last word. The last word has always and will always be one of the most powerful hand cannons in the Destiny franchise in PvP due to its high rate of fire and high damage. In the hands of a skilled user, the last word can wreak literal havoc on the enemy team. And if you haven't ever used the last word before, I would highly suggest practicing with it in core/non-competitive PvP game modes such as Rumble and Control. Get a feel for it before you take it into survival, because survival is where you bring all your best toys to the battlefield, and this should never be a game mode where you're trying out weapons for the first time. For Anger and Bargaining, 200 solar kills might sound like a lot, but believe me when I say that it doesn't take as long as you would think. That's because these 200 solar kills can come from anywhere, literally. Your super, your energy weapon, your heavy weapon, yeah. If it deals solar damage, and if it's capable of killing, it'll count towards the part of this quest. Do your best to load your Guardian up with as much solar damage weapons as you can. Now for this part of the quest, you can take your hand cannon off and use another weapon, since you don't need to use a hand cannon again until the final step of this quest. Now there's a decent chunk of solar damage weapons in the game, but for this step, we're gonna focus on what's the most practical and competitive. If you're a shotgunner, you'll want to get your hands on a Mindbender's Ambition or the Last Man Standing. Mindbender's Ambition is the strike exclusive reward from the Hollow Lair Nightfall, and Last Man Standing can drop from the Gambit Prime drop sources and the Reckoning during the week that the Darkblade brothers are the bosses. I believe that Last Man Standing can only drop from Tier 3 Reckoning, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Aggressive frame shotguns are in a very good spot in PvP right now, and if you manage to get a well-rolled version of either one of these weapons, a 200 solar kills would be much easier to get. Open a Shot is an incredibly strong perk, and it's available on the curated Mindbender's Ambition, as well as being a possible perk in the first trait slot for Last Man Standing. And due to the incredibly high impact of both of these weapons, you can one-shot enemy guardians at ridiculous ranges if you have the Open a Shot perk. On my second account, I used the Last Man Standing with a shotgun scavenger mod on my boots and literally ran around like a ferocious gorilla. Yeah, gorilla. not guerrilla. In freelance survival, I would only suggest attempting this at your own risk. Now, I exclusively played with a team, so I was able to get away with this a lot easier than somebody in the freelance side of the survival playlist. If you're a sniper, your only options are the Beloved from the Menagerie, Twilight Oath, and Omniscient Eye from the Garden of Salvation raid. Beloved is the most popular sniper rifle in this archetype due to its short zoom scope and its ability to roll amazing perks such as quick draw, snapshot, and no distractions. Twilight Oath and Omniscient Eye both belong to the rapid fire frame 140 RPM archetype, which are the most forgiving sniper rifles in the game for PvP. Sniper rifles in this archetype feel the most snappy due to their high handling stats and fast fire rates. Aside from dropping from various Dreaming City drop sources, your best bet with getting a nicely rolled Twilight Oath is in the Menagerie, similarly to the Beloved. However, I was told that the curated roll Twilight Oath, which comes with snapshot and box breathing, can only drop from the Dreaming City. Now, I'm not a fan of fusion rifles at all, but the only ones I can recommend are the Moon's Dreambreaker and maybe a Masterwork Merciless. Dreambreaker is an adaptive frame fusion rifle, and in my opinion, this archetype is second only to the high impact frame fusions, which is an archetype that the notorious Erentil belongs to. Dreambreaker can roll some amazing perks, such as rangefinder, backup plan, tap the trigger, and quick draw. And if you manage to get one of these things to roll with some range boosts from projection fuse and a range masterwork, you're golden. Merciless is a forgotten relic of a weapon due to never being super viable in PvP and fading out of existence of the PvE meta after year 2, but its catalyst gives it an extra, I believe, 36 range and 54 stability. On paper, Merciless looks amazing, but with a charge time of 900, you'll have to pre-charge behind cover before you engage anybody, because if you don't, you will get killed before a single bolt can leave your weapon. A Masterwork Merciless can work in place of an Erentil to some extent, but if Erentil was a solar damage weapon, I would recommend that 100 times over. Now, when it comes to heavy weapons, I hate to sound negative, but your options are either limited or non-existent. Depends on how you look at it. Edgewise and fixed odds are the only solar damage machine guns that can be attained in game, but I would never take either one of these weapons into the Crucible. Edgewise should be used in PvE as an ad clear weapon, and I don't know what the point of fixed odds is, but I used this thing in survival once before and it kicks and bounces around so much it's impossible to cleanly kill your opponents. I haven't used fixed odds with a counterbalance stock mod equipped, so if anybody has any experience with that and can tell me if this mod makes fixed odds recoil more manageable, please let me know. If Hammerhead was a solar damage weapon, or if we had a solar damage machine gun and the 450 RPM archetype, that's what I would recommend, but sadly, no such thing exists in Destiny 2 as of presently. Now, for grenade launchers, all the solar damage ones are all in the aggressive frame archetype, if I'm not mistaken. Love and Death, Outrageous Fortune, and Terran Wind. And in my experience, the aggressive frame grenade launcher's true home is PvE, whereas the adaptive frame grenade launchers are best suited for PvP. Aggressive frame grenade launchers have low blast radius and high rate of fire. For PvP, you want a higher blast radius and lower rate of fire. This is why grenade launchers such as Play the Game are commonly seen in the Crucible. Now, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but it'd be nice if there was a solar damage adaptive frame grenade launcher. Wow, Bungie, listen, we need more guns in these different archetypes with different elements, or just make the elements random like they were in D1. This is ridiculous. Anyways, oh yeah, before I forget, the Iron Banner's Roar of the Bear is pretty good too. Not only is it a solar damage rocket launcher, it can roll tracking module and quick draw at the same time. And it's a high impact frame rocket launcher, which have the highest blast radius of all rocket launcher archetypes. The first time I went for Luna's Howl, I used the Sins of the Past that I changed the solar damage in year 1, and it put in some serious work. Sins of the Past is in the same archetype as Roar of the Bear, and that insane blast radius made it super easy to shut down supers. I would have recommended Sins of the Past earlier, but if you get it to drop in a Leviathan raid or grab it from the collections, it only comes in arc damage. For supers, if it wasn't obvious, try and familiarize yourself with the solar supers if they aren't something you normally use. Warlocks, you'll come to enjoy Bottom Tree Dawnblade for the tracking swords and solar grenades, which have always been very forgiving for as long as I've been using them. For Titans, Top Tree Sunbreaker's Hammer Strike and Bottom Tree Sunbreaker's Sun Warrior perks are incredibly viable. Hammer Strike with Peregrine Greaves can shut down supers with ease, and Sun Warrior can make your super last for an incredibly long time. Hunters and their 6-shot golden gun for rapid multi-kills is incredible, as well as Blade Barrage, which can shut down almost anything in the game and grants insane damage resistance. In Season 9, Top Tree Dawnblade, Bottom Tree Golden Gun, and Middle Tree Sunbreaker are all getting buffed, and these buffs are looking incredibly promising, so keep your eyes peeled for the next season. If these buffs work amazingly as Bungie says that they will, getting the 200 solar damage kills might be even easier. Now, for the 100 hand cannon headshots, I had the most success with Crimson. Crimson is the only burst fire hand cannon in the game, and I've come to find out that if one single bullet of one of Crimson's bursts hits an opponent in the head while dealing a final blow, it'll always count as a headshot. Crimson also has an odd recoil pattern, and as long as you aim at the neck, the recoil will always pull up to the head. I was literally getting free headshots with Crimson, and it almost felt like this weapon was doing all the work for me. As stated previously, you can use Trust for this entire quest, but I would highly suggest not doing so if your Trust has the explosive payload perk. It's a super common occurrence to shoot somebody in the face and for it to not count as a precision final blow because explosive rounds can't crit. The first time I went for Luna's Howl was back in season 4, and the best Trust that I had was one with explosive rounds. The 100 headshots was a nightmare because I couldn't crit opponents as often due to the explosive payloads. But if you have a Trust that does not have this perk, then you can easily get away with that too. In my hands, Service Revolver felt amazing, and the headshots were a walk in the park with this weapon as well. So if you have a Service Revolver with perks like Rangefinder, Rapid Hit, and Outlaw, you should have a pretty simple time with this part of the quest. Alright everybody, that does it for everything that I can recommend for the Luna's Howl quest. I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor and thumb rest of that like button till it turns blue. And if you're new to my neck of the woods, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you won't ever miss a video of the most elite gaming content. But with that being stated, 1LHD is over and out. Y'all take it easy.